I still remember that night like it's carved in the back of my mind. The room was quiet, just the low hum of my laptop and the ticking clock on the wall. It was one of those cold evenings in London when you don't really talk to anyone, you just sit and think about how far you've come. I had just finished my final exams. My degree in business management was done, and I was finally free. That freedom felt strange, like I'd been running for years and suddenly stopped, not knowing what to do next. I missed home. I missed my family. It had been almost 2 years since I last saw them. I opened my phone, scrolled through old pictures of home, my mother's garden, my father reading the newspaper, my sister Mia laughing in her usual carefree way. She was my best friend once. We used to talk about everything, love, dreams, silly things. I used to protect her from everyone, even from my parents' strictness. I was the older one, always told to sacrifice a bit more, behave a bit better, study a bit harder. And I did. I went abroad because they said, "Emily, you're the hope of this family." So I left everything behind for them. That night, while scrolling, I saw something I'll never forget. It was a photo. My sister Mia, in a white wedding dress, smiling. My heart froze. I stared at the screen for almost a full minute, thinking it must be a photo shoot, or a random event. But then I saw the caption, "The happiest day of my life. Officially married." And below it, dozens of comments, family, friends, cousins, everyone congratulating her. Everyone, except me. Because I didn't even know. My hands started shaking. I kept scrolling, looking for more pictures, trying to understand what was happening. There were group photos, my parents smiling proudly, relatives dancing, my cousins laughing. The decorations were familiar. It was our house. Our own backyard. The place I grew up in. I zoomed in on one of the pictures and there, behind Mia, was my mother, wearing the same saree she once promised she'd wear to my wedding. My throat felt tight, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. I checked the date of the post. It was uploaded 3 days ago. 3 whole days, and not a single message, not one call from anyone in my family. I stared at my phone, disbelief turning into anger. I opened WhatsApp, nothing. I searched for my mother's chat. The last message from her was a short text from 2 months ago. "Hope your exams are going fine." That was it. No mention of a wedding, no hint, no invitation. For a moment, I thought maybe it was a small ceremony, maybe a last-minute plan. But then, another photo caught my attention. It was a professional photo shoot. Full decoration, stage, guests, everything planned. They didn't forget. They chose not to tell me. I sat there, frozen. Tears didn't come right away. Just this hollow silence in my chest. I whispered to myself, why? Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it wasn't real. So I called home. The first ring went unanswered. Then another. And another. Finally, my mother picked up. Her voice was calm, distant. "Emily, how are you?" she asked. Like nothing had happened. Like it was any other day. I said quietly, "Mom, why didn't anyone tell me about Mia's wedding?" There was a pause. I could hear the sound of a fan spinning in the background. She didn't answer for a few seconds, and then she said, "We didn't want to disturb you during exams. You were busy, and everything happened so fast." Her tone was firm, final, like she was reading from a script. I couldn't even find words. "You didn't want to disturb me," I repeated. "Mom, it's my sister's wedding. I'm her only sister. How could you not even tell me?" She sighed. "You're always so emotional, Emily. We thought it's better this way." Better this way. That line hit me like a slap. I hung up. I sat staring at the wall for a long time. My reflection on the laptop screen looked like a stranger's, eyes empty, lips trembling. I felt like someone had pulled the floor from under me. For years, I had thought family meant love, understanding, unconditional support. That night, I realized something deeper. Family can also be silence. Cold, sharp silence that cuts deeper than words. When I finally tried to sleep, I couldn't. My mind kept replaying the images. Mia's smile, my mother's face, the guests, the decorations. The laughter. All the laughter I wasn't a part of. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but who? Everyone I loved was in those pictures. Everyone who was supposed to love me back. The night passed slowly, and with every hour, my pain turned into something else. Something darker. I didn't know it then, but that night was the start of everything. The beginning of my story. The story of how silence can break someone, and how truth can destroy everything you thought you knew. The next morning felt heavy. The kind of heaviness you can't shake off even after coffee or sunlight. I woke up early, maybe because my body was still restless from last night's storm of thoughts. I sat by the window, watching the fog outside, trying to convince myself it wasn't real. Maybe there was a reason they didn't tell me. Maybe it was just bad timing, a misunderstanding. But the truth didn't care about my excuses. It was still there, sharp and clear, sitting in my chest like a stone. I opened social media again. The more I saw, the worse it felt. Every picture was a reminder that my family had erased me from something I should have been part of. My sister's friends were tagging her, saying things like, the most beautiful bride, and can't believe she's married. I clicked on one of the tagged videos. It was of her walking down the aisle, our father beside her, smiling. He looked so proud. And I remembered when he told me before I left for London, "You're my strongest girl. You'll make us proud." I guess pride had different meanings for him now. I noticed something strange. The man standing beside Mia, the groom, I didn't recognize him fully at first. His face looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. Then, it hit me. He looked like someone I used to know. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My heart started pounding. I zoomed in on his face, and my stomach turned. It was him. Ethan. My old friend from college. The one who once confessed he had feelings for me. The one who used to come over, who my family knew. The one I trusted completely. I remember the last time we spoke. It was right before I left for London. He said he'd wait for me, that maybe when I came back, things could be different. But then life happened, and I got busy with studies. We lost touch. I assumed it ended there. But now, he was standing next to my sister, holding her hand, smiling like he never knew me. I couldn't stop staring at the screen. It wasn't just about not being invited anymore. It was betrayal, layered, quiet, cruel betrayal. I tried to piece things together in my head. How long had they known each other? How did my parents allow this? Did they even care about how I'd feel? Every question made me shake more. I threw my phone on the bed and buried my face in my hands. 4 hours, I just sat there in silence. Every time I tried to breathe, it felt like something was pressing against my chest. I felt like a stranger to my own blood. I thought about the years I spent sacrificing, working double shifts, eating cheap meals, saving money to send gifts home. Every call, every moment I missed, because I was busy trying to make them proud, it all felt pointless now. Later that day, I tried calling Mia. She didn't answer. Not once. I left her a message. I saw the pictures. I don't understand what's happening. Please just tell me why. No reply. Not even a single tick turning blue. That silence hurt more than words ever could. Days passed. I didn't eat properly. I went to work, smiled when needed, but inside I was empty. Every night, I came home, looked at her wedding pictures again, and cried until I couldn't anymore. I wasn't angry all the time, sometimes, I just felt numb. Like I'd lost something that could never come back. Then one night, I received a message. It wasn't from Mia or Mom, it was from my cousin Lily. She simply texted, "I don't know if I should be saying this, but you deserve to know. Everyone knew. Your mom told them not to tell you because it would ruin the peace." I stared at that message for minutes. Ruin the peace. That phrase stayed with me. Whose peace were they protecting? Theirs? My sister's? Certainly not mine. That night, something inside me broke quietly. Not the kind of break that shatters you into pieces, but the kind that reshapes you. The one that turns warmth into distance. I promised myself one thing. I wouldn't beg for answers anymore. I'd find the truth myself. I owed it to the version of me who loved them unconditionally. The next morning, I called my university office and requested an early end to my student accommodation. They said I could leave within a week. I booked a flight home, even though I had no idea what I'd say when I got there. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. For once, they'd be the ones surprised. The days leading up to my flight felt strange. I was quieter, calmer than I expected. Pain has a way of numbing everything after a while. I packed my bags slowly, one memory at a time. The scarf my mother gave me. The bracelet Mia had bought on my 18th birthday. I held it for a second, then dropped it into the bag. I wasn't taking the past with me. Just the lessons. When I boarded that plane, I looked out the window at the city I had worked so hard to survive in. I thought about how dreams change when truth hits. Sometimes, you don't need revenge immediately. Sometimes, the real revenge is showing up when no one expects you, and letting the truth speak for itself. As the plane lifted off the ground, I whispered quietly, "You didn't want me at your wedding, Mia. But you'll see me soon." I didn't know then what would happen next. But I knew one thing for sure, when I'd land back home, I wouldn't be the same Emily they left behind. The flight home felt longer than usual. Every hour that passed, I kept asking myself if I was making a mistake. What if they didn't even care that I was coming? What if showing up unannounced only made things worse? But then I remembered the silence, the unanswered calls, the wedding photos, the lies. That silence was already worse than anything that could happen next. I wasn't going home for answers anymore. I was going to see the truth with my own eyes. When the plane landed, the air felt heavier. It wasn't the air of home I remembered. It felt colder, even under the bright sun. The taxi ride from the airport to my house was quiet. I kept staring out of the window, watching the familiar streets, the shops, the same old trees I used to walk by every morning before school. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. When the car stopped in front of my house, I hesitated before stepping out. It looked perfect from the outside, flowers trimmed, new paint on the walls, everything neat and proper. The same house that used to feel warm and safe suddenly looked like a stranger's home. I stood there for a minute, holding my luggage, wondering if I should ring the bell or just walk in. When I finally rang the doorbell, I heard footsteps inside. My heart was pounding, not from excitement, but from something darker, an ache mixed with fear. The door opened. It was my mother. Her face froze when she saw me standing there. For a second, she didn't speak. Then she said, "Emily." Her tone wasn't happy. It was confused, almost defensive. "Hi, Mom," I said quietly. "I wanted to surprise you." She stepped aside slowly. "You should have told us you were coming," she said. "We weren't prepared." Prepared. That word stung more than I expected. "You weren't prepared for me," I said, trying to smile, but my voice cracked. Kind of like how I wasn't prepared for Mia's wedding. She looked down, avoiding my eyes. "Emily, not now. Let's not start this the moment you walk in." I walked past her and into the house. Everything looked new, new curtains, new furniture, even new family pictures on the wall. My eyes went straight to the biggest frame above the fireplace. It was from the wedding. Mia and Ethan, smiling together. My mother and father on either side, all of them glowing like it was the happiest day of their lives. My name wasn't anywhere. Not a single trace of me. I stood there, staring at that picture for a long time. My mother said quietly, "You were away. We didn't want to burden you." "Burden me?" I turned to her. "I'm your daughter. How is telling me about my sister's wedding a burden?" Before she could answer, my father walked in from the backyard. His expression changed the moment he saw me. "Emily," he said, in that calm, controlled voice he always used. "Why didn't you tell us you were coming?" I laughed a little, bitterly. "Why didn't you tell me Mia was getting married?" Silence. The kind that fills every corner of the room, pressing down on your chest. My father glanced at my mother, then back at me. "It wasn't intentional," he said. "We just thought it would be better this way." "Better for who?" I asked. "Huh? You? Or him?" He didn't answer. His silence said everything. I walked toward my old room. The door was still the same, the nameplate still said Emily's room. For a second, I felt something tug inside me, nostalgia, maybe. But when I opened the door, it was empty. The furniture was covered. My books and photos were gone. It didn't feel like my room anymore. I sat on the bed and took a deep breath. I could hear voices outside. Mia had arrived. My heart started racing again. I didn't know if I was ready to face her. But I didn't come this far to hide. The moment she saw me, she froze. "Emily," she whispered. Her voice trembled, and I couldn't tell if it was guilt or surprise. "Hey, Mrs. Newlywed," I said softly. "Congratulations." She looked down, her hands fidgeting. "I was going to call you," she said. "Things happened so fast. I didn't know how to tell you." "How to tell me?" I asked, my tone sharper now. "Mia, you had a full wedding. You had guests, photographers, music, everything. You had months to tell me. You didn't forget, you chose not to." Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did," I said quietly. "And you didn't just hurt me, Mia. You erased me. From my own family. From your wedding. From your life." She looked away. My mother stepped in, trying to calm things down. "Emily, please. It's over now. She's married. What's the point of bringing it up again?" "The point?" I repeated. "The point is that I was your daughter, her sister. And none of you thought I deserved to be part of it." My father sighed. "You were always dramatic, Emily. Always turning small things into big issues." That line shattered something inside me. I wasn't dramatic. I was broken. And all I wanted was an explanation. I turned to leave, but before I walked away, I said one last thing. "You think silence makes things easier. But one day, it's going to speak louder than anything you've ever said." I went back to my room and locked the door. For hours, I sat on the floor, staring at the wall. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that eats you alive slowly, reminding you that even though you're home, you don't belong there anymore. That night I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet, but my mind wouldn't stop spinning. Every shadow on the wall looked like a memory I didn't want to see. I could hear my parents talking softly in the living room, their voices low but sharp. I couldn't make out every word, but I caught enough to understand. My name kept coming up. My father said, "She'll calm down. She always does." My mother replied, "We just have to make sure Mia doesn't feel guilty again." Guilt again. That meant she had felt it before. They knew what they'd done. And they had chosen to live with it like it was normal. I turned over in bed and looked at the ceiling. My eyes burned from crying, but my heart still wouldn't stop pounding. I thought about running away again, maybe back to London, maybe somewhere far where I didn't have to see their faces. But that felt like giving up. And this time, I didn't want to run. I wanted to understand. I needed to know what made them erase me so easily. The next morning, I went to the kitchen early. My mother was there, making tea like she always did. She looked surprised to see me awake. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep," I replied. Too much noise in my head. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she sighed. "Emily, I know you're hurt. But you have to understand, things aren't always black and white." "Then explain the gray part," I said quietly. "Explain why your daughter got married and you didn't even think I deserved to know." She hesitated. "It wasn't our decision alone," she said finally. "There were reasons." "What reasons?" I pressed. "That I was studying. That I was far away." "That's not a reason, Mom. That's an excuse." She looked down at her cup. "It's complicated." I almost laughed. "No, it's not complicated. It's cruel." Her face tightened. "What's your tone, Emily? We didn't tell you because it would have made things harder for everyone." "For everyone or for you?" I shot back. "Because it seems like everyone was smiling just fine without me." She didn't respond. She just picked up her tea and walked away. That silence, again, was her shield. But this time, I didn't let it break me. It made me colder, steadier. Later that day, I stepped outside into the garden. The flowers I'd planted years ago were still there, blooming quietly. It felt strange, like they'd survived better than I had. As I stood there, I saw Mia through the window. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, her wedding ring catching the light. For a moment, she looked peaceful. Happy, even. I hated that it still hurt to see her that way. I wanted to feel nothing. But I couldn't. I went back inside and sat across from her. She looked up slowly, unsure whether to speak. "How long?" I asked. She frowned. "What do you mean? How long were you with him?" Her expression changed instantly. She looked shocked. "What are you talking about?" "Ethan," I said firmly. "You married him. I deserve to know the truth." Her eyes darted away. "It wasn't planned," she whispered. "Things just happened." "Things don't just happen, Mia," I said. "You don't just wake up one day and marry someone your sister used to care about." Tears filled her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you. He reached out to me after you left. We started talking. I thought he was just being friendly. I didn't realize." I cut her off. "You didn't realize what?" "That you were falling for him." That you were betraying me. Or that you were taking away the only person I ever trusted outside this house. Her tears started falling. Please, Emily, don't say it like that. I didn't steal him from you. You two weren't together. I stared at her, my voice calm, but shaking. No, we weren't. But he was my friend. My family knew that. You knew that. And you all still decided it was okay to keep it from me. She buried her face in her hands. I didn't know how to tell you, she said again. I got up slowly. You didn't tell me because you were afraid of what I'd think. And you were right to be afraid. I walked back to my room, leaving her there, crying on the couch. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like comforting her. I didn't feel like being the bigger sister who forgives. I felt like someone who'd finally seen the truth about the people she loved. That evening, I went through some old boxes in my closet. There were letters, pictures, memories from when we were younger. I found one letter from Ethan, dated the year I left. It said, "You make me feel safe, Emily. I've never met anyone like you." I stared at it for a long time, then tore it into small pieces. It didn't hurt anymore. It just made sense. Everything did. I started noticing things differently around the house. The way my parents avoided looking me in the eye. The way Mia changed the subject whenever I was in the room. It was as if they were all afraid of me now. Or maybe afraid of what I might do. That thought made me strangely calm. I realized something that day. Silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the presence of guilt. And this house was full of it. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about what to do next. I could confront Ethan. I could expose what they did. But that felt too easy. I didn't want noise. I didn't want drama. I wanted them to feel what I felt. To live in the same quiet discomfort that had been my home for years. And that's when it started, the thought, small and quiet, that maybe the best revenge isn't shouting the truth. Maybe it's letting it unfold on its own. Maybe I didn't need to ruin anything. I just had to be patient. The truth always finds its way out. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, "You erased me once. Let's see how long you can live without the truth." That was the night my silence stopped being pain and became power. The days that followed felt strange, quiet, yet heavy with something unspoken. Everyone in the house walked carefully, their voices softer, their smiles forced. It was as if my presence had become a shadow they couldn't ignore, but didn't know how to confront. I didn't mind it. For the first time, I liked their discomfort. It was honest. It was real. I started observing everything differently. Every glance, every whisper, every half-finished sentence. People reveal more in what they try to hide than what they say aloud. My mother's tone changed when she spoke about the wedding. My father suddenly became distant, spending long hours in his study. And Mia, she kept pretending everything was fine, posting pictures of her new life online, smiling beside Ethan, her hands always showing off that golden ring. I couldn't stop looking at those pictures. Not because I was jealous anymore, but because something about them felt off. There was a photo of the wedding reception, taken in our old backyard. I recognized the lanterns, the chairs, even the piano I used to play. But what caught my attention wasn't any of that, it was the background. A single frame in the corner where I noticed something familiar. A picture frame. My picture. It was lying face down on the table, like someone had hidden it on purpose. That tiny detail stayed in my mind like a splinter. Why would anyone turn my photo face down? Was it guilt? Or something else? I needed to know. The next morning, when everyone had gone out, I started looking through the house. Not snooping. But searching. Searching for answers that no one wanted to give me. I started in my parents' study. My father had always been careful with his things, but I remembered that his old desk drawer had a loose lock. It still did. Inside, I found old bills, papers, letters, and then a small white envelope with Mia's wedding written on it. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a printed receipt from a wedding planner. But the date, that's what made me freeze. The date was 3 months before the actual wedding day. 3 months before I even knew she was engaged. I sat down slowly. My parents had known everything for months. They had planned every detail, paid for everything, and not once thought to tell me. But there was something else too. Attached to the receipt was a note in my mother's handwriting: "Make sure Emily doesn't find out until after. We can't risk her reaction." My breath caught in my throat. I read it again. And again. Risk her reaction. Like I was a threat. Like my emotions were something to be managed, not understood. I laughed bitterly. So that was it. They didn't hide it because of Mia or Ethan. They hid it because of me. Because they didn't want to deal with what I'd feel. Because my pain was inconvenient. I folded the note carefully and slipped it into my pocket. I wasn't done yet. Later that day, Mia came home early. She looked tired, her makeup smudged, her eyes red. "Rough day?" I asked, pretending not to notice the tension in her face. She hesitated. "Ethan and I had a fight." "About what?" "Nothing important," she said quickly, but her voice cracked. "Lying doesn't suit you, Mia," I said softly. She bit her lip. "It's just, he's been distant lately. Always distracted." I tilted my head. Guilty men usually are. Her eyes widened slightly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said, forcing a smile. "Just an observation." But inside, I was burning. There was more to this story, something Mia didn't even know. And if Ethan was hiding something too, I was going to find out what. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the note. About Ethan. About the way everything had unfolded so perfectly wrong. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my old laptop. I went through my old emails, my old messages. And that's when I found it. An email from Ethan, dated months ago, sent to my old address. The subject line read, "You deserve to know." I clicked it open. It was short, maybe a few lines, but every word hit like a bullet. "Emily, I don't know how to say this. Things got complicated. I didn't plan for this to happen. I care about Mia, but I also care about you. I wish I could talk to you before this all goes public. You deserve to hear it from me, not them." The date of that email. 2 weeks before the wedding. He had tried to tell me. My parents had made sure I never saw it. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I laughed, quiet, bitter, exhausted laughter. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. They had all made a choice, to control what I knew, to silence what I felt, to protect themselves from my truth. For the first time, I didn't cry. I just felt clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. They had taken away my right to be hurt, to even exist in their version of happiness. But now, I had something they didn't. The truth. And truth, when hidden too long, starts to rot everything around it. I closed the laptop and whispered to myself, "You buried me alive in your lies. Now I'll let the cracks show." I didn't know how yet, but I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Sleep had become a luxury I couldn't afford. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that doesn't comfort you but reminds you that something is missing. I made coffee, sat by the window, and kept replaying Ethan's email in my head. Every word felt heavier than the last. He cared about me. At least, he claimed to. But he still married my sister. And my family hid the truth. That's not care, that's cowardice. I wasn't going to let them get away with rewriting my story like that. I decided to meet Ethan. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even text him first. I just took a bus to the area where he and Mia had moved after the wedding. The entire ride there, I kept thinking of what I'd say. Would I confront him? Would I demand answers? Or would I just look at him until the guilt spoke for him? When I reached the neighborhood, it was almost noon. Their house looked perfect from the outside, white fences, trimmed hedges, a car in the driveway. Everything screamed, happily ever after. But the thing about perfection is, it's usually hiding a crack. Mia wasn't home. I knew that from the empty driveway. I stood there for a few seconds, unsure whether I should knock. But before I could decide, the door opened. Ethan stood there, shocked, pale, as if he'd seen a ghost. "Emily," he whispered. "Yeah," I said calmly. "I guess ghosts do show up when you try to bury them alive." He froze, his lips parting like he wanted to explain, but couldn't find the words. I stepped inside without asking. The air smelled like coffee and new paint. Everything was arranged perfectly, like a photo set. "You got my email?" he asked quietly. "Months later," I said. "After you said I do to my sister." He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way." "Then how was it supposed to happen, Ethan?" "You marry her quietly while I'm out of the country and hope I'll just disappear from the story." He sat down on the couch, avoiding my eyes. "Your parents, they told me you wouldn't understand. They said you were fragile, that you'd break if you found out." I almost laughed. Fragile. That's the word they used. They didn't protect me, Ethan. They protected their image. Their comfort. And you were just convenient enough to believe them. He didn't respond. The silence stretched. I walked around the room, noticing framed photos of him and Mia. Smiling, celebrating, pretending. But there was one frame on the shelf that caught my attention. It was turned backward, just like the one I'd seen in the wedding photo. I reached out and flipped it over. My picture. It was the same one that used to sit on my parents' piano. "Why do you still have this?" I asked. He hesitated. "Because I couldn't throw it away." "That's not guilt, Ethan. That's cowardice with a frame around it." He stood up, his voice rising slightly. "I didn't choose this to hurt you. Things just happened." "Things don't just happen," I said coldly. "People make choices. And you made yours." He looked defeated, his shoulders dropping. "You have every right to hate me." "I don't hate you," I said softly. "I hate the version of me you and my family created, the quiet one, the understanding one, the girl who was supposed to forgive without being asked. That version is gone." Before I left, I looked him straight in the eye. "One day, Ethan, this perfect little life you built on secrets will start to fall apart. And when it does, I won't need to lift a finger. The truth will do it for me." He didn't stop me as I walked out. Maybe he knew I was right. Maybe guilt had already started to do its work. When I returned home, my mother was waiting in the living room. She looked nervous, like she already knew where I'd been. "Emily, where were you?" "Out," I said simply. "With him?" I didn't answer. She sighed deeply. her tone shifting to something that sounded like pleading. You need to let this go. For your own peace. I looked at her for a long moment. Peace doesn't come from pretending, Mom. It comes from truth. You should try it sometime. Her eyes filled with something between anger and regret. But she said nothing. That night, I sat at my desk and took out the note I'd found in my father's drawer. The one that said, "Make sure Emily doesn't find out until after." I placed it beside Ethan's printed email and my own photo that I had flipped back upright. 3 pieces of evidence. 3 symbols of betrayal. It wasn't rage that I felt anymore. It was understanding. Painful, clean understanding. My family wasn't evil. They were weak. They chose comfort over confrontation, silence over truth. But weakness has a cost, it corrodes everything it touches. I decided to write. Not to accuse. Not to seek sympathy. But to tell the story exactly how it was. The truth they tried to bury. I started with one line. They didn't invite me to my sister's wedding because lies make better family portraits. Once I wrote that, the words just kept flowing. Hours passed. By the time I stopped, the sun was rising again. I had written 10 pages of truth, raw, unfiltered, real. It wasn't a revenge plan. It wasn't destruction. It was exposure. The kind that makes people see themselves in the mirror they've been avoiding. And I wasn't done. I posted the story anonymously online under a title that only they would recognize. The guest who never got an invite. Then I waited. For the first time, I wasn't scared of what would happen next. I wasn't scared of them finding out it was me. Because this time, the truth was louder than their silence. When I woke up that morning, I didn't expect anything different. I wasn't waiting for revenge. I wasn't hoping for chaos. I just wanted the silence to end. The truth was already out there, breathing on its own. I had no idea it would travel so far, so fast. When I woke up that morning, I didn't expect anything different. I wasn't waiting for revenge. I wasn't hoping for chaos. I just wanted the silence to end. The truth was already out there, breathing on its own. I had no idea it would travel so far, so fast. By noon, my post had reached thousands of people. It wasn't supposed to be viral. I didn't even include names. I just wrote what happened, how a family hid their shame behind tradition, how they buried a daughter's existence to make a wedding look perfect, how truth can be cruel but necessary. People didn't need names to understand pain. They saw themselves in my words. By evening, my phone started buzzing. Calls, messages, notifications. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years were texting me things like, "Is this about you?" and "This sounds so real." I didn't reply to anyone. But then one message made me stop. It was from Mia. She wrote, "Did you post that story?" I stared at the screen for a few seconds. Then I typed, "Maybe." "Why?" Her reply came instantly. "Because Mom's crying. Dad's furious. And Ethan, he's not saying a word." I could almost picture it. The 3 of them sitting together, the truth finally cornering them in a room they couldn't escape from. And the best part? I didn't have to say a single word to make it happen. An hour later, I heard a car pull up outside. My heart didn't race. It was steady, calm, ready. The front door opened, and my father walked in first. His face was red, his eyes cold. My mother followed, tears in her eyes. Mia came last, looking somewhere between guilt and disbelief. My father didn't waste a second. "How could you?" he shouted. I didn't flinch. "How could I what?" "Tell the truth. You've humiliated this family," he barked. People are calling, asking questions. Do you realize what you've done? I looked at him steadily. Yes. I made people see the version of this family you always tried to hide. Stop twisting it, Emily, my mother snapped. You're making it sound like we're monsters. I stood up slowly. You're not monsters. You're just cowards who didn't want to face the mess you created. Mia stepped forward, her voice shaking. You could have just talked to us. I turned to her. You mean the way you talked to me when you got engaged? Or when you walked down the aisle without me there? No, Mia. Talking stopped being an option when you all decided my feelings were a problem to manage. She looked like she wanted to argue but couldn't. Tears filled her eyes, and for a second, I almost felt something. Sympathy, maybe, but it vanished just as quickly. My father rubbed his temples, his anger softening into frustration. We were trying to protect you, Emily. You were in another country, alone. We didn't want to distract you or hurt you. I laughed softly. You didn't protect me, Dad. You erased me. There's a difference. Silence. No one spoke for a while. The air between us was thick, almost choking. Then Mia whispered, Ethan saw the post. He knows it was you. Good, I said quietly. My mother gasped. What do you mean good? I mean maybe now he'll finally understand what it feels like to live with something you didn't choose. My father pointed at me, his voice trembling with anger. You think this is justice? This is revenge, Emily. It's cruel. I looked him dead in the eye. No, Dad. It's accountability. You can't call it cruel just because it's finally fair. My words hung in the air like smoke, and for the first time, I saw something in his face that wasn't anger, it was doubt. A flicker of realization. Maybe even guilt. My mother sat down, covering her face with her hands. We never meant for it to go this far, she whispered. I sighed. Neither did I. But once the truth comes out, it doesn't wait for permission. No one had anything left to say after that. My father left the room first. Mia stayed back, standing near the doorway. Her lips trembled as she said, I thought you'd forgiven me. I did, I said softly. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. It just means I stopped waiting for you to care. She nodded slowly, a single tear rolling down her cheek. I didn't think you had it in you to do this. Neither did I said. But then again, you didn't think I had it in me to be forgotten either. She turned away and left without another word. The sound of the door closing behind her felt final. When I was alone again, I sat down, letting the weight of everything sink in. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt free. The kind of freedom that comes from finally choosing yourself, after years of being told you shouldn't. But the story wasn't over. Because truth, once revealed, doesn't just end a lie, it begins the unraveling. And in the days that followed, that unraveling came faster than I could have imagined. The next few days passed like a storm that refused to end. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Messages from strangers poured in. Some thanking me for being brave, others sharing their own stories of being left out, unseen, uninvited. I hadn't realized how many people lived quiet lives like mine, carrying invisible betrayals behind polite smiles. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. But with every notification that brought comfort, there came another that carried chaos. Gossip pages picked up the story. Anonymous blogs were dissecting every word I wrote, trying to guess who the family was. I hadn't mentioned names, but the internet has its own way of finding things it isn't supposed to. By the third day, I stopped reading the comments. I didn't need validation, and I wasn't looking for pity. The story had taken a life of its own, and all I could do now was watch it breathe. That morning, as I made breakfast, my phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something inside told me to answer. Hello. Emily. It was Ethan. His voice was low, tired, like he hadn't slept in days. I guess you've seen it, I said quietly. I have. Everyone has. He paused. Do you know what's happening to us because of that post? I sighed. Do you mean the story, or the truth? He didn't answer immediately. Then, my company found out. They're threatening to suspend me because of the online attention. People are messaging Mia. She's breaking down. I stayed silent. Please, he said softly, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need you to stop. Take it down. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. Ethan, you built a life on lies. I just turned on the light. I'm not the one who made it collapse. His tone cracked. You don't understand what you've done. I laughed bitterly. No, Ethan. You don't understand what you did. You took something from me you can't give back, trust. You married my sister, and watched me cry from miles away. You didn't even have the courage to tell me the truth yourself. I tried, he said weakly. Your parents stopped me. That's convenient, I said. Blame the people who are already guilty. Maybe that's how all of you survive, by pretending you didn't have a choice. There was silence on the line. Then he whispered, You still hate me, don't you? I hesitated. No. I don't hate you. Hate gives people power. I just don't see you anymore. And maybe that's worse. He didn't speak after that. I heard him breathing, then the line went dead. I sat there for a long time, the phone still in my hand, staring at the blank screen. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel proud. The truth doesn't give you closure. It just clears the fog, so you can finally see how broken everything really was. That evening, Mia came over again. No makeup, no fancy clothes. Just a hoodie, jeans, and a face that looked 10 years older. They are saying things about us online, she said. People at Ethan's work know. Mom's barely eating. Dad's not going out anymore. I didn't name you, I said softly. But they know it's us, Emily. People always find out. She sounded desperate, her voice cracking. I can't sleep. I can't think. I made one mistake, and now my whole life is falling apart. I looked at her carefully. One mistake. She looked down. Okay, more than one. But I didn't deserve this. You're right, I said quietly. None of us did. But tell me something, Mia, when you sent those wedding invites, did you think about what I deserved? She didn't answer. Her silence was louder than any apology could be. I continued, my voice calm but sharp. Do you know why I didn't take your names in the story? Because I didn't need to. The guilt was always going to do the work for me. Her eyes filled with tears. So that's it. You just want me to suffer. No, I said. I just want you to understand. You can't build happiness on someone else's silence and expect it to last. You wanted peace without honesty. It doesn't work that way. She stepped back, wiping her tears. You sound just like Dad when he's angry. I smiled sadly. No, Mia. I sound like me when I finally stop being afraid. She stared at me for a few seconds before whispering, I miss my sister. I took a deep breath. You had a sister. You just didn't invite her to your wedding. Her face crumpled, and she left without another word. That night, I sat in my room, the weight of everything pressing down on me. I had told the truth. I had faced them. But why did it still feel so heavy? Maybe revenge doesn't free you completely, it just gives you back the control they stole. I opened my laptop again, scrolling through the hundreds of messages people had sent me. Some of them were heartbreaking, stories of siblings who stopped talking, families who split over secrets, daughters who were blamed for feeling too much. I realized then that my story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who had ever been told to stay silent for the sake of peace. I posted a short update that night. Just one line: the truth doesn't destroy families. It reveals which ones were real. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't explain anything. But that single line went further than anything I had ever written. By morning, it had spread everywhere. People started using my post as a quote, a message, a statement of defiance. I didn't plan it. I didn't chase it. But it became something powerful. And yet, deep inside, I knew this wasn't over. Truth has a strange way of coming full circle. And somewhere in that circle, forgiveness, or maybe redemption, waited quietly. I just didn't know yet whether I was ready to find it. When the video went viral, my world went silent. 3 million views in 2 days, thousands of comments, strangers taking sides, but not one message from my own family. I waited, hoping my mom or dad would call, but all I got was silence. It was like they'd buried me long before that wedding ever happened. Then one night, I got a message from my cousin, Sarah. She said, "You need to know who stopped your invitation." She sent a picture from the wedding, my aunt, standing behind my mother, recording everything. Sarah told me it was my aunt who convinced everyone I shouldn't come, saying I'd embarrass the family. That was the moment everything inside me shifted. I wasn't forgotten. I was erased. I called my mother that night. When she finally answered, her voice was small. I asked, "Why did you let this happen?" There was a long pause before she whispered, "We thought you wouldn't come." She said, "You'd changed." I said quietly, "You never gave me a chance." And I hung up. For the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt free. The truth had already done what revenge couldn't. It shattered the illusion they lived in. They wanted perfection, and now the world saw the cracks. A few days later, my dad called. He said, "Come home. Your mother hasn't stopped crying." His voice trembled in a way I'd never heard before. I agreed. Not for them, but for closure. When I reached home, it felt like walking into a memory that didn't want me anymore. My sister opened the door and hugged me tight. "I didn't know," she whispered, and for once, I believed her. My mother couldn't meet my eyes during dinner. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry." 2 words, late but heavy. I looked at her and said, "You didn't lose a daughter. You chose to forget her." That night, I sat in the backyard where we used to play as kids. My sister joined me and asked, "So, what now?" I said, "Now, we live with the truth." It already did what revenge couldn't. Months passed. My parents started calling more often. My aunt moved away. The house changed, not because I punished anyone, but because guilt did its own quiet work. I didn't delete the video. I wanted it to stay, not as revenge, but as a reminder of how silence destroys love faster than hate ever could. Sometimes I still read the comments under that video. People write things like, "Your story gave me courage," or "I forgave my family after this." And that's when I realize, it stopped being just my story. It became a story for everyone who's ever been left out, silenced, or betrayed by blood. In the end, truth didn't just explode, it exposed. It burned away everything fake and left behind something real. I didn't need revenge to win. I only needed courage to speak. And maybe, that's the loudest kind of justice there is.